August is coming up, and I decided to go with these functional and at the same time decorative stickers that fit quite well because as a child I used to be at the Mediterranean Sea around this time literally every year, and every single day I would spend at the beach and in the water. This video is the last episode of my mini-series in which I make a video about each type of spread that I typically use. And this time I want to talk about what I don't do in my bullet journal and why, especially things and spreads that are popular on YouTube and on social media in general, while I set up for August. If you're interested in watching the previous episodes of this series, you'll find the link to the playlist in the description box. First of all, I don't have a purely decorative title page. As you can see here, my title is quite modest and it goes together with my monthly calendar. I decided a title page takes too much work to set up and it consumes a lot of space. I like to keep one notebook for the entire year, which is also the reason why I prefer journals with more pages and thin paper, and therefore I don't want to waste space on purely decorative non-functional pages. My calendar view, secondly, is also not in the shape of boxes as you usually see it on YouTube. Just simple lines are sufficient for me. They take less space, are easier to set up, and can be combined with my trackers, which I really appreciate. This page is supposed to give me a general overview about what is going on during the month, and I don't need all the space of those boxes to fill in what I'm doing every single day. And frankly, when people post after the pen pictures of their box-style calendar spreads, they are also most of the time pretty empty. For me at least, this simple and small calendar is enough. The fact that the calendar only takes up one page furthermore allows me to have a dashboard for general notes introduced right next to it, so that I can see the entirety of important information for the month at a glance, which I think is very handy. The next point are the trackers. As mentioned before, I don't have an extra spread for just the habit trackers, but I integrate them into my monthly calendar. This has all the benefits that are important to me. It uses less space, the layout is very clear, and it is fast to set up with no extra headers or a bunch of mini calendars that need to be drawn out. I also restrict myself to a realistic amount of habits I want to track in order not to discourage myself. I don't want to abandon my trackers in the middle of the month because it is too overwhelming. Rather, I choose 5 habits at most that are important to me and I stick to them. They are also not so much a log to record what I did when, like mining data from my own life. I rather use them as a tool to help me establish habits that I want to have, so it would probably be more accurate to call them something like mini goals tracker. This also means that I don't use a sleeping log or anything similar to this. I would if I had issues with my sleeping patterns, for example, in order to learn about my sleep and help me diagnose the problem, but as this is not the case, I don't need it. The same applies to the mood tracker. I actually don't fully understand the function of the mood tracker and why it is so popular. If, for example, I would want to research my cycle in order to understand it better, a mood tracker would indeed be very useful. And in that case, I actually would just set up a whole cycle log in which I could record all data regarding my cycle and not just my mood. However, I don't find the mood tracker by itself very functional. It is not only a lot of effort to set up, it also wants to be filled in every single day, which I know I would just not consistently do. Of course, I am aware that mood trackers are a good opportunity to create an artistic spread, and social media is very attuned to visually pleasing content, and I am convinced that is the actual reason why the mood tracker is such a well-established spread. Here I misspelled the header and forgot the H and only realized that later, so this header is supposed to mean other. Another spread that I see quite often are goals for the month. I already explained that my trackers are basically goals I want to meet every day in order to establish new habits. Besides that, I tend to rather formulate things as to-dos than as goals. The line between these different categories can be blurry, and it is probably also a question of mentality that I don't think about my stuff as goals that I want to achieve, but rather as tasks that I need to complete. I personally have the impression that the concept of goals is a pretty American one, and that does not always work so well for me, at least not for short-term issues. Long-term goals are a different thing, but they don't go into my monthly setup. Point 5 is that I keep my monthly lists and collections on a minimum. Without extra spreads for habit trackers, etc., I don't clutter my monthly. Usually, I only have 2 double spreads before the weekly start. These are the overview spread, followed by finances and a general notes page. This reduces the flipping back and forth during the day when I use my Bujo. I do have a reflection page as well, but I purposely have it after my weekly so that I don't have to deal with it throughout the day. My 6th point is decorating spreads. I read a lot of comments of people saying that they struggle to keep up with their bullet journal or feel overwhelmed or pressured with the need to be creative and artistic. This is actually counterproductive. The Bujo is not functional anymore when it is abandoned or when it increases the stress level, and for me, functionality comes first. I admire the art that many creators produce here on YouTube, designing themes, drawing, and all these things, but it's not for me. I like to have aesthetically pleasing spreads because it keeps me motivated, but I create them with very simple tools such as stickers, stamps, that allow me to be done in a reasonable amount of time and still have some creative fun. Space also sets limitations to decorating because I really need room to write in and can't fill it all up with decoration. Nothing of what I do in terms of decorating is pre-planned. I just go with the flow, so to speak. I already mentioned that I don't use purely decorative spreads, so another thing I don't have in my Bujo are quote pages. I do think calligraphy is cool and I'm trying to learn it, however, I don't like quotes in my Bujo. Besides all the aspects that I have already mentioned that are important to me, like time, effort, space, and so on, I actually don't feel inspired by reading the same quote over and over again on a daily basis. For all these reasons, I limit myself to purely functional pages and don't clutter them with quotes. By the way, my last video is a little special regarding all this, because I normally would be traveling around this time in the year, and as this is impossible, I created a collage with travel pictures to instead bring the world to me. If you're interested to see how that turned out, you will find the link below. The beautiful music that you are listening to is by a band called Long Way Hazel, and I recommend you check out their YouTube channel that is linked down below. And finally, setting up and decorating my Bujo is a one-time event for me each month. I don't invest more time into this than what you see me doing right now. This means that everything that I fill out in the course of the month must happen with just one black pen. That is just more feasible for everyday life, especially when I'm not quarantined at home. Therefore, I don't do color coding, even though I can see the benefits of it, and I also use no color to fill in any of my trackers. When I leave the house, I usually take my bullet journal with me, and I want to carry as few supplies as possible. A simple black pen must suffice to use each of my spreads. Decorating only during the setup also means that I don't go back to my journal each Sunday to create and design a new spread for the coming week. This again would be too time-consuming for me, and it would give the decorational part way too much importance vis-a-vis the functional one. As I already know which layout works perfectly for me, I just set up all weeks at once in the beginning of the month, having all the work out of the way for the future. This also enables me to pre-plan, which is very important for me. Now, one of the most important arguments against setting up everything in advance is that a lot of the flexibility which characterizes the bullet journal method gets lost. What if, for example, one day I need to take a lot of notes that don't fit into my pre-planned layout? That's a fair point, and my solution that works just fine for me is this. Let's say I attend an event and need more space than my weekly allows to take notes. In that case, I just flip the last page of my monthly setup, write the topic on the top of the new page, and start jotting down my notes. In the same way, I just start new collections, lists, etc. whenever I need them, of course without decorating them. So in between my months, I always have a few pages of additional notes, collections, and so on. For me, this perfectly reconciles the flexibility on the one hand with pre-planning my weeks on the other hand. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'm very interested to learn what things you consciously don't do in your bullet journal and why. So tell me in the comments. If you want to support me, leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe. And I wish you all a relaxed August.